Hi, this is Bill Hader.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Bill Hader. Bill Hader.
Welcome to We Heart Hater. I'm Deej Barons, who is still experiencing a slight bit of sweater weather here in Western Canada.
And I'm your co-host and former teen star of the CW high school drama Riley's Way and current master at work, Casey Killingsworth.
A little bit of upfront Bill Hader news. There is a new Larry David has a new 7-episode show premiering on June 26th on HBO and Mac called Life, Larry, and the Pursuit of Unhappiness, an almost history of America. It's a sketch comedy show which, like Curb, is not traditionally scripted. It is improvised. It's exploring American history to honor America's 250th anniversary, but from Larry David's unique perspective. Been described as Curb in costume. In particular, it will feature in one segment Bill Hader as Abraham Lincoln, with Kathryn Hahn as Mary Todd Lincoln. There have been some pictures released, behind-the-scenes pictures released online that show Bill with the beard and everything, so very much looking forward to that. So yes, Bill gets out of the house. We flip back to the SNL side of things, and we will get this rolling with Casey Killingsworth.
So this is season 33, episode 4, with host Brian Williams, musical guest Feist. In case you don't know, Brian Williams at this time was the anchor of NBC Nightly News. This episode also took place during the week of a big Democratic presidential primary debate, which they have plenty of material on in this episode. Quick bio on our host. Brian Williams started out as a correspondent on NBC Nightly News in 1993. And December 2004, when Tom Brokaw retired, he was promoted to anchor and managing editor. He seemed to really be wanting to cultivate this image of himself as the news anchor with a sense of humor. He certainly appeared to be a dignified man and a respected journalist, but he didn't want to be seen as a total stiff or anything. He was, doing all the late night shows in New York like Conan and Letterman, Colbert and Jon Stewart. This wasn't even his first appearance on Saturday Night Live. He made an appearance in a pre-update segment, the season 32 premiere.
Brian, what are you doing here?
Oh, I'm so excited to be anchoring Update with you. It's been a long wait.
Oh, gosh. Did you get my messages?
You know what? I've been crazy busy. I've written a ton of material. And what did you need?
Oh, Brian, we decided to go in another direction.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, Brian, what's up?
Hey, Seth.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
It's good to see you.
Hey, I'm, sorry it didn't work out.
No. Congratulations.
Thank
This
you.
is the right guy. The right guy got the job. This is great for
Thank you so much for saying that. It means a lot.
Look at you. I mean, doesn't look like you have one of these anchor earpieces that anchors wear.
No, I'll get one. That's great advice. And hey, congratulations on being the #1 news anchor in America.
Don't patronize me, Seth.
Hey, Brian, feel free to stick around for the rest of the show.
Aim, I'm gonna head home. I got a wife and 2 kids, and someone has to tell them that Daddy's not gonna be on TV tonight.
This is a unique episode in SNL's history. It's a historic episode in some ways. Bill's first appearance in this episode is in a rather historic sketch, not just in SNL's history, but in American political history at the time. It's a Halloween party thrown by Bill and Hillary Clinton at their Chappaqua home in New York. Yeah, so the Clintons just threw this Halloween party for Hillary and her fellow Democratic presidential hopefuls / future also-rans of the time, because as Hillary puts it, a year from now we are going to need to unite and rally around the Democratic nominee, no matter who she may be. Bill appears as Senator Chris Dodd next to Jason Sudeikis as then Senator Joe Biden. So we get the debut of that impression. First of all, both these guys have to remind Hillary that they were at the debate at the end of the stage, the far end of the stage where apparently she couldn't see them. But they're both dressed as SpongeBob, similar to the SpongeBob costume Keenan wore in the Hurricane Katrina sketch that we discussed in our first episode where Bill debuted his Al Pacino. So they're both dressed as SpongeBob.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Why weren't you guys at the debate?
No, we were. Down at the end.
Oh, of course. I'm sorry.
So, you guys both dress like SpongeBob?
Yeah, it's funny. Can't help thinking if there were only one of us, this costume would make a bigger impression.
Yeah, we really cancel each other out.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Hey, great mystery costume, Bill.
And you make a very scary witch.
Oh, I...
Yeah, well, they both have the exact same gray hair, SpongeBob thing over a dark suit, so costume people did a very good job of making sure they look a little bit different, but still kind of a cookie cutter of each other.
It even finishes airing. Yeah, so obviously this was some kind of meta commentary on something that you had to have been around and paying attention to the news this week to get, but was it a commentary on the presidential race and how there are too many old white senators running for president like there always are? Or is it just a meta commentary on SNL's cast just having too many random interchangeable white guys for these types of roles? The biggest thing that makes this a historic sketch, someone shows up in an Obama mask and they take it off and they reveal it's actually then Senator Barack Obama as himself, showing up to say, you know, it's Halloween, but I don't want to change who I am. I don't need to. And he compliments Hillary's bride dress and Hammond says she's a witch. And Obama says he's here to tell the American people live from New York. It's Saturday night.
Good. I mean, it's not much of a part for Bill, but still, being in the cold open and being part of a working sketch, it's always good to see Bill in even a little bit.
Bill's next appearance is in something that's rather short and kind of a nothing thing that I don't have a lot on. It's the Maybelline for Men. Bill, Andy, Jason, and Will, they're all hanging out watching football, and Fred's gonna bring beer, and he shows up wearing makeup, which he says is Maybelline for Men because that's what it says on the box. And it also says that it's not noticeable, which he tells Amy about, who plays his wife. And that's pretty much it. At least it was like blackout length short. It's just forced low-level absurdity. Doesn't appear to be based on anything. I will point out, it is a strange coincidence that we have now done 2 consecutive podcasts reviewing scenes in which Fred Armisen has worn full makeup.
Exactly the time it needed to be. What this makes me think of is what is generally known as the pink tax. Take, for instance, razors. You have razors for women, razors for men, and they're essentially the same razor, just different color, different packaging. All the time, it seems that the male version is cheaper than what they call the female version. And all the times when I have bought razors, I've always just gone for the men's ones because they're exactly the same thing. There are occasional differences, like the one that has like a lotion bar with it, but it don't really need to buy into that, because what happened many years ago is Bic decided to come up with Bic for Her, a Bic pen made strictly for a woman. It was nothing really different, just pink packaging. If you go on Amazon and read the reviews of it online, they're absolutely hilarious. A bit of a commentary on, it doesn't matter if it looks like this. It says on the box, this is for men. The makeup looks they had that were actually really good. So, good job, makeup department.
Yeah, and in a world where you can freely buy dude wipes at any store, it's This sketch actually does hit a bit harder now that I think about it.
Yeah, well, there's things I could say on that trying to be a clean podcast, so.
The next sketch is possibly my favorite live sketch of this episode. It's Riley's Way on the set of what may be the finest teen high school drama in the entire history of the CW. They're shooting the final scene of the series finale. Jason is the director, and the actors are played by Andy Samberg, Amy Poehler, and Kenan Thompson. Bill's in this, and he's just the clapper. Brian Williams, our host, is in this sketch as the actor who plays Principal Jeffries, and he'll be the first to tell you he was on Quantum Leap. They're shooting the final scene, which for some reason involves 3 high school children sitting on a swing set in their cap and gown. High schools don't have playgrounds, so was there graduation ceremony or graduation party in year 1, or was there cap and gown fitting year 1, or maybe they're going back to the place where they did their senior skip day. Let's not question the setting of this too much. Stilted, semi-hackneyed teen drama dialogue set to a slow, sad cover of Rihanna's Umbrella. Not done by Rihanna. I think this was done by Mandy Moore. I remember hearing she did a cover of this song around this time. I'm not sure.
Riley's Way, scene 42, take 1. And action.
Graduation. It's a funny word. Never thought I'd be saying it.
I still can't believe it's the end.
It's not, Spence. It's the beginning.
And then here comes Principal Jeffries, who has only one word of advice for them. Live. That's it. Live. Live your lives. Class dismissed. And then they got to do a take 2. Principal Jeffries is excited about shooting the finale and wants to get together with a cast afterward at Lake Havasu for bumper boats, but they can't because they tell him that next week they start shooting on the spinoff Riley's Way, the college years, and he's upset that he didn't hear about this because he wasn't told about this because he's not in the spinoff. So now Brian's lines in the next take are,
Scene 42, take 2. And action.
I still can't believe it's the end.
It's not, Spence. It's the beginning. Principal Jeffries.
What do you want?
Any advice for the future?
Yeah, you know what? You can go to hell, you can lose 10 pounds, and you're gay. What?
he's upset at the director for not having heard of the spinoff, let alone being put in it. He's told, why would the principal of their school go to the same college as them? It doesn't make any sense. His next take, he comes in wearing like a sideways hip-hop kid's baseball cap and says that he can't believe he didn't get his degree. It looks like it's back to college for old Principal Jeffries, so I'll check you fools on the quad. And then he asks the director to not be such a bone and put him in the spinoff. And he gives a dramatic speech of his own that seems even more underwritten. Doesn't quite work for me. Maybe that's a joke, but I did like Jason asking to kill the music when the same cover of Umbrella comes up. Principal Jeffries wasn't the most popular character.
Well, let me tell you about another man. His name was me, and he was on Quantum Leap. Twice in the same episode. I wish all of you here good luck, and may your next leap be the leap home. Class dismissed.
So they're so impressed, they get a writer to come in for a rewrite. And then we see the scene as it airs where Bill just comes in at the end.
It's not Spence. It's the beginning. Hey, it's that guy that killed Principal Jeffries.
Class dismissed.
This was very well acted. It reminds me of Mike Underball's a little with the roles reversed. So I guess Jason drew on some experience for that, and I think Kenan, Amy, and Andy they channel teen melodrama well, especially Kenan being a former child actor. Brian did sell the hopelessly out-of-touch delusion and desperation of his character perfectly without overselling it since they only did 2 bad takes. It was like a sketch that was like perfectly crafted for him and for this episode. That's what made it work so well for me.
I love this one as well. Just for Bill's part as the clapper, every time he goes off screen after he claps, just the way he runs off, I found very, very humorous. There's a couple of things that this sketch reminds me of, with Bill being the clapper. That position is known as a clapper loader or second assistant camera, was the correct position. Bill has told many stories on his experience as a PA on Collateral Damage. And one particular story he tells, there's the person who's supposed to play the pilot didn't show up that day.
We need a pilot. And Bill, you fit the pilot outfit. So Bill, you're going to be in the pilot. And so I was just an extra. The actor, he said, Elias, why don't you ask the pilot, how long we got? And pilot, just say 3 or 4 hours depending on the weather. And I could hear Jerry Grandi go, that's Bill. And, oh, wait, we got Bill up there? Oh, yeah, Bill, just say 3 or 4 hours depending on the weather. And I was next to a guy who was an actual extra, and he's looking at me like, you son of a And I got, I got into SAG. That's how I got into SAG.
You got your SAG card.
That's how I got into SAG, was that they did that. And it didn't end up in the movie. It's on the deleted scene. So
picking up someone from the crew to pull in for another thing. And for a similar incident happened way back in the 70s. Three's Company decided to do a spinoff. None of the rest of the cast was told about the spinoff, and it was just very shadily done behind the scenes. The other part is with having the principal there being in college. There is precedence for this. In the series Boy Meets World, Mr. Feeney, in the series she started off as their teacher, then the principal, and then moved on to each of the schools. And how they got him into the college period, started in 1998, is apparently he was teaching classes at the university now. And just how he goes on about quantum leap all the time. And even with Jason trying to reach out, like, you were in Leap, man. Now, don't get me wrong, Quantum Leap was a very, very big series, and I loved it at the time, except for the ending. Don't get me started on that. Really good kind of send off on those kind of shows, and just how, unfortunately, when it comes to a new setting with a sequel, some people are going to get left behind.
And I love brief back and forth between Jason and Brian. Brian says, you're not going to put me in the spinoff after
all I have done for this show. I am on this set every day, whether I have a scene or not, running my lines, running their lines, writing lines.
Yeah, Barry, we specifically asked you not to do any of those things.
Yes, that was a very good section there. I think that's where the "you were in Leap, man" comes into play.
Okay, the next sketch is not one of the better ones of this episode, and it aged weirdly and seemed like it would have been pretty hacky even by 2007 standards to begin with. This is the Larry King live sketch. Fred Armisen as Larry King. In my opinion, not one of his better impressions. And we also get Amy Poehler as J.K. Rowling as Larry King's guest, because in real life, right after the last Harry Potter book had been released, suddenly J.K. Rowling publicly announced that Dumbledore was secretly gay this whole time, as if it had any bearing on the stories or how that affected the plot at all. As weird as it is to see J.K. Rowling now portrayed as anyone even vaguely or passively supportive of the LGBTQ community, there's a side of it that holds up when you think about it as this being a portrayal of J.K. Rowling as a shameless opportunist, just desperately clinging to relevance after her career as a beloved and well-respected children's author just come to a close. And I'm sure she wasn't thinking about how she might be damaging her legacy this time. There's a couple different readings of the sketch. She's on Larry King's show to present deleted scenes from the movie that do play up Dumbledore's sexuality. Bill as, I'm going to say, Michael Gambon's Dumbledore from the movies, since he'd done the most of them by that point. And we get Kristen as Maggie Smith's Professor McGonagall. The first one is Dumbledore got an owl regarding he who must not be named.
Albus, we're going to be late for the Quidditch match. We must be there to protect Harry.
I just received an owl from he who shall not be named.
Oh, Albus, don't tell me Voldemort has returned.
No, not Voldemort. Jerry, my ex. Jerry Shanks.
Oh, Albus, as a friend, I don't like seeing you like this. I suppose it drunk owled you?
Yes, it was a booty owl.
Oh, Albus, do you want me to brush your beard?
Please.
At one point, Dumbledore says,
Oh, Minerva, if only you had a penis and balls.
And it's just scenes where McGonagall has to save Dumbledore from himself, especially the third one where they're at some wizard gay bar and she tries to stop him from letting Jerry Shanks hurt him again. And then he sees this new guy.
Oh, check out that little juicy pork chop. I'm not with her, by the way.
Oh, no, you didn't.
I'll just say that Bill and Kristen, by default, the best parts of this sketch for their chemistry and how much they were able to elevate this material as much as it could be elevated.
I'll always love Kristen and Bill together. Both of them being in their third year on SNL, they're really starting to develop their chemistry even more every year, which carried on through many, many years past with Skeleton Twins. Paul, which if you haven't seen Paul, it's awesome. As well as the husband and wife team that ran the amusement park in Adventureland. The interplay between the two of them as Dumbledore and McGonagall. As someone who has been close friends with many, many gay men, you always have to have that one girlfriend to almost kind of protect you from yourself. That was the thing that did really save things. I mean, some of the jokes are a bit dated, but the jokes weren't really that bad. Because that does happen. Like sometimes you have an ex that tries to hit you up after you've not been together for a booty call, but the transposition from a booty call to a booty owl, putting into the Harry Potter world was very, very clever. So I still get a smile out of this one.
Here's a sketch I get a little bit of smile out of. I believe it's the last sketch of the night, and Bill's final 2 appearances, because he has dual roles in this, which you'll see if you pay close enough attention. It's the new open. Brian Williams is himself in a conference room meeting with some NBC executives. Straight man roles played by Amy Poehler and Bill Hader, and Jason Sudeikis just there to kiss up to whoever was the last person to say something. And they're just talking about how they just got the numbers in. They're not doing great with younger audiences. That's the problem. All these young people are getting their news from the internet and these podcasts. Podcasts mentioned in a sketch in 2007. I'm not sure if this is the second ever mention of podcasts on SNL, but it is the second time that Deej and I will have covered a sketch that mentions podcasts on our podcast. So kind of gives you an idea of what time frame this sketch takes place in. What it tells me is that by early 2006, SNL just learned that podcasts were a thing. Even if they didn't know what they were, they knew that anyone with at least a laptop and microphone could make their own and put it out on iTunes or wherever. But by late 2007, not even 2 full years later, we'd seen that SNL and the rest of traditional legacy media knew what podcasts were and were starting to figure out that they could be used as a source of news and political commentary. So, hey, these damn podcasts are getting into our racket. Brian ignores Bill's suggestion.
We should get Mo Rocca to do a nightly blog report.
No, that's stupid. So stupid.
What I've just done is I've hired the firm of Dunham and Kirk to compose a new theme song, because the open is where we're lagging the most with getting young people to tune in. So they bring in the band that Dunham and Kirk sent.
The Dunham and Kirk?
It's a very eclectic, Fly High Duluth type band featuring Fred Armisen, Will Forte, Andy Samberg, Maya Rudolph, Kristen Wiig. From this point, it's kind of like a mishmash of a few different types of band musical act sketches that this cast liked to do. Brief bursts of variety kept it moving at a snappy pace. It was was a little all over the place, but didn't detract from it. Will Forte says, here's your theme song now. Boring, 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 boring. So we wrote this, and it's Maya in her final moment as a cast member, which this may be notable for, doing a gritty 70s funk song about crime and poverty and selling drugs in the ghetto, which I could only understand half the lyrics of.
It's a low down dirty city, getting down to the nitty-gritty. Baby girl, you know food in his belly, got no cornbread and got jelly. Brother feeling Jones, oh, they're brothers, no one takes time to love one another. Nightly news.
Brian doesn't like that, so they go to Andy Samberg, who's dressed as like an 80s new wave Flock of Seagulls reject, singing the Frasier theme. And when Brian calls him out on that, he's just like, busted. Brian says, yeah, I want something new, fresh, and hip, but dignified. Forte says, oh, we got dignified coming out of our ass. Here's Fred Armisen in blonde ponytail dreads and something sleeveless to do a hardcore rap about drinking 40s and popping cherries. So Brian doesn't like any of this. So he asks, what happened to the idea that I submitted? Amy says, we agreed that this shouldn't be done. So Brian says, hey, I'm the guy that's putting his face and his name out there to the American public every night. It's my ass on the line, and what I say goes. Perhaps the funniest part of the sketch, we see James Bond title sequence with Brian in a tux, holding a martini, and just punching out various bad guys, and we see Bill in a bald cap as like an eye patch, Dr. Evil type villain with a machine gun, and he's getting punched, and at one point, Brian punches the earth as it rolls toward him, and this ends with him saying his new sign-in line on the news is, good evening, I'm Brian Williams, and that's how I roll. So, a fun ending to this episode.
The concept was great. Intros to the newscast tend to be pretty staid. A couple things that got me is, the one thing I loved about Bill's appearance in this is they mentioned Dunham and Kirk. He was like,
The Dunham and Kirk?
Sets it up that they're supposed to be this big deal. Then they have Andy's character doing the theme from Frasier. So if this was such a good jingle agency outfit, why would they have someone who would plagiarize a TV show? Makes no sense. Very entertaining as Brian trying to revise his own image with the Bond thing. And that would have actually been pretty neat episode start for a nightly newscast. And Bill's brief appearance as one of the villains kind of reminds me of the end of 21 Jump Street. They had a bunch of different trailers for different films, different styles, where he briefly played a chef for 23 Jump Street Culinary School. Yeah, this was definitely a good way to end the night. And although there wasn't much Bill in a lot of the stuff, at least the subtle stuff he did, he was, as always, really good at.
Let's go over some of the non-Bill moments as time allows. I'll gloss over the monologue a bit and say it was Brian just publicly expressing his doubts about doing this show and how it might harm his image. He says he found out that there were other esteemed newsmen who he looked up to who have been on this show, Jennings, Brokaw, rather, but then he found out today that those were just cast members impersonating. Those are just guys Daryl Hammond played. He's here because NBC research shows people find him to be a bit stiff, and it'd be good for his image to have some fun. People think he can't pull himself out of Anchorman mode, but tonight that all changes. He plans to be fun, loose, and spontaneous and have a good time. And we know this because he has an over-the-shoulder graphic that says it. And he apologizes. It's just an Anchorman thing. I don't know when that's going to come up. It set a confident tone for the rest of the show.
Oh, definitely. If you have either read or listened to or haven't, go ahead and do this, the Live from New York book. There is a rather extensive section in the interviews with Brian Williams all about this. There are some instances. It was a very good instance back in the 80s when Edward Newman had hosted the show, and that remains one of my all-time favorite episodes because he did such a really good job with that. And as we go throughout the night with Brian Williams, he was actually pretty good too. The other interesting thing about background about this particular episode, originally The Halloween pedophile sketch was written for this episode, but through whatever reasons, it didn't go on. So that did go on to John Hamm. Had to call Tom Brokaw, and he still had to return his message. That whole Anchorman moment never comes up in the rest of the episode, but it was a really good setup. But yeah, no, he was very, very charming. He didn't stumble. So all in all, I'm continually impressed with how he did in this episode.
Yeah, now that you bring it up, mention a few other dress rehearsal cuts from this episode besides the Jeff Montgomery thing. There was Willie and Julio, where Forte's Willie Nelson and Brian's Julio Iglesias, which was discussed on the Lonely Island Seth Meyers podcast, and it was a right call to make that cut because, I mean, footage, as dignified as Brian Williams is, footage of him doing essentially brownface could come back and bite him in the ass later. He played Mr. Produce, who gave his son, Andy Samberg, a stern talking to for not taking good care of the vegetables while he was making a guest appearance on Ellen, which I think they did a few years later with Robert De Niro. There is a message from Dennis Kucinich. Amy Poehler plays Dennis Kucinich and comments on how his popularity is always considerably higher whenever he's in the presence of his wife, played by Kristen Wiig. I think this should have made the cut. Another sketch with Amy Poehler as Dennis Kucinich, this small elf-like man, did make the cut, and it was backstage at the Democratic debate with most of the same senatorial and congressional impressions we saw in the cold open, but Amy's Dennis Kucinich and Chris Dodd's played by Daryl Hammond instead of Bill Hader. Obama's in this, so it's like they're setting you up for a cameo that he would have rightly turned down, so that feels weird. And it devolves into Armison's Mike Gravel proposing a plan to kidnap Hillary, and I'll just say that, like, Amy Poehler as Dennis Kucinich is the only part of that sketch that did not play to dead silence. I'm not kidding. Like, watch this on Peacock, you'll see. Also cut, I believe this was revealed by John Schneider when he guested on That Week, when they reviewed this episode. TV Funhouse segment from Robert Smigel that dealt with racial profiling on, kind of had to fight with the censors to get it on. Lauren fought for it, but it came down to, okay, Senator Obama's here. Why don't we show this to him? And if he says no, then we won't show it. So Obama said no to that. I'm guessing he said no to cameoing in this, not the least of which because he's a senator running a presidential campaign and had other places to be on Sunday. And we do get a cut from this episode that did make it into reruns. 1 or 2 iPhone ads. The iPhone had come out, and one ad was Fred Armisen saying how much easier it is to cheat on his pregnant wife by saving his side piece and his contacts under a fake name, and you can zoom in on pictures of her ass. And they should have cut this one instead because I think it didn't work. Fred sold the sleaze and creepiness of that a little too well without even trying. But there was a much funnier one with Jason, who plays a small business owner who also likes to punch cops. And the iPhone makes it easier for him to do that. He can go up to a cop, punch him, run like hell, find a woman's bathroom stall to hide in so they won't find him, and then play an escape route with Google Maps, and then use iTunes to find the perfect songs to listen to while coming down from his crystal meth high. Let's talk about Bronx Beat. I've run kind of hot and cold on these, and this one sticks out in my mind, not much for particular lines, but I know it's the last one of these that Maya would do as a cast member. They welcome the guest, who is Brian Williams as a firefighter giving fire safety tips. And this was a good acting moment because he played a character doing a voice that reminded me of Steve Carell's Ray Romano from the same Hurricane Katrina sketch we talked about in our first episode. That was fun. And this ends with Maya's character talking to Amy's character about how they're going to drink a glass of wine. They're going to go to that store because no one's watching because, hey, you're in charge of your own pleasure. They're just hinting at the possibility of going to buy a vibrator. Yeah, one thing that stood out to me, they said it is the first Bronx Beat where the host plays a character and doesn't just play the straight guest role or just a slightly more befuddled version of themselves. And I thought about that, and I came to the conclusion that this is the first Bronx Beat where the host is given room to play a character, because Amy and Maya would just pretty much dominate these by just kind of rapid-fire dialogue. But after this one, the ones they did it as hosts with Timberlake and Sandberg and Tina Fey, even the one from SNL 50 with Mike Myers is Linda Richman, let their guests get in more words and accents edgewise. Maybe not so much the ones with Hugh Laurie and Katy Perry. They didn't have much to say in theirs.
Amy and Maya play so well off each other. I always love the fact that the characters are generally modeled after Jody Mancuso, who at the time ran the hair department, so he had that very thick Bronx accent. Jody, which is Maya, had about the things she couldn't do is like all the things that she couldn't eat. It's like all you can't eat all day. So, one other time we mentioned sweater weather, which has gone on to be a very quotable thing. One thing I did notice is that the character that Brian was playing was Paul Dooley, but on his helmet it says Williams. I'm not sure how that happened, but it was it's not something you'd notice right away. I didn't even notice it until I watched it again this week. The way that Brian Williams played this was absolutely perfect. Very appropriately uncomfortable when they're trying to talk about his abs. This is the one thing in this entire episode that really impressed me with Brian Williams. And I always wonder why he was never brought back as a host. He was able to play the character well. The accent he was using did not slip. It seemed like the guy was very real. And the joke about Betty and Jody asked, so when you have a fire, what should you grab?
Well, I was just going to say, not to put too fine a point on, if fire breaks out, really all you should grab is yourself.
Well, that's good, because my husband's an expert at grabbing himself.
Brian Williams had some acting chops here, and he actually got to end out the episode because they went off to have go off and have a glass of wine. He ends off the episode, and he even fits in a "my wife" supposed Borat reference. A sketch is etched in my memory because of just how well Brian Williams did.
Here's another character I thought Brian Williams played well. It's Carl Bacon in the Publishers Clearinghouse sketch where Kristen Wiig plays Cheryl Bryant, a presenter who has trouble garnering any level of excitement from him after presenting him with a $15 million prize, giant check and everything. First of 3 times she'd play this character. The first time was all right. The other 2 times is a little bit more the same, but didn't hit too much at the type of roles they'd pigeonhole Kristen Wiig in. But this was nice, especially when she shows clips of other prize winners played by Forte, Poehler, and Rudolph, jumping around, flailing. I liked Amy tearing through a pot at playing the screen door, but she doesn't even garner as much excitement from him as Fred Armisen does as a Domino's delivery driver who offers him free cheesy bread with his pizza because he never gets free cheesy bread.
Yeah, I think long ago this should have been a one and done. It's just, yes, I know a lot of sketches happen to have the same notes. In a lot of ways, the type of character that Kristen is playing reminds me of Sue, who loves surprises but can't contain herself.
Yeah, it was a slippery slope from this to Sue, but we may not have seen it coming at the time, but yeah, this was nice for what it was.
I mean, Brian Williams could be very staid on his own. So, well, he did have a good reaction with the whole cheesy bread because, hey, who doesn't love free cheesy bread?
I'd like to talk a bit about the digital short in this episode because it's one of those rare non-Lonely Island ones, totally in their voice. It's just the Brian Diaries, fun little unique segment where Brian poked a little bit more fun at himself and his own image than he got around to doing the monologue. His day starts with him just standing in front of 30 Rock, waiting for someone to recognize him. And when someone calls him Stone Phillips, he decides that's close enough. Exercises in the gym by just standing on a treadmill in roller skates with his paper. He's going to feel that burn tomorrow. He'll eat a commissary to not separate himself from the common people, but he eats with a bodyguard roped off at his own table. Goes up to throw some pennies down onto the morning duo, Al Roker and Matt Lauer, to answer Matt's question of what kind of asshole throws pennies out a window. Probably one who knows something about you, Matt, that the rest of us wouldn't find out for another decade. There's a brief scene of him meditating by imagining Bono, the actual Bono from U2.
Oh, yeah. Looking good, Brian. You're way cooler than me. I'd do anything to be you.
Thanks, Bono.
I mean, the idea of Bono being used as a barometer of coolness is something else that may have aged this noticeably, but the idea of Brian Williams imagining Bono is less cool than him still holds up surprisingly well. The gags about him watching his favorite news anchor himself, the master at work, and leaving his own voicemail, they were all right, but they felt telegraphed a little. But this was fun, and I do kind of wonder who wrote it. But this was a really nice part of this episode, too.
If you want more of the background of it, there is the episode on the Seth Meyers and Lonely Island podcast available to you. Neat highlights is at the very first scene where he's leaving the voicemail for someone. And in the end, it turns out he's leaving the voicemail for himself. And the dropping pennies, I just looked this up because I'm wondering, I'm not a very scientific person. I dropped science as soon as I could back in high school, but I know the basics of physics where even a small item, if it's dropped from a tall enough level, one of those pennies dropping on someone can actually kill them. And NBC News is located on the 4th floor, so there was less chance of damage to the Roker and Laura. Showed how much he was very, very game and engaged to want to do this. It is still one of my early favorite shorts.
Feist performances, if you're like me, I'm sure you remember the song from all the iPhone commercials it was in. They got played to death around this time. And it's just a style of music that reminded me a lot of Spoon's performances when we reviewed the Seth Rogen episode. She sounds like a much more aggressively twee version of Florence and the Machine. She's like what I imagine Zooey Deschanel would be if she decided to pursue music full-time instead of act. And I do also remember after this, Brian Williams was on The Daily Show and said that Feist was a musical guest that he requested Lauren book for this episode. I believe she may also be Canadian D. So do you have anything to say on Feist?
And very much indeed Canadian. She was born in Amherst, Nova Scotia. Her parents divorced. They moved to Saskatchewan. 1, 2, 3, 4 was featured, of course, in the iPhone commercials. But what I'm rather fond of was Feist's appearance with a song on Sesame Street.
I mean, I'd imagine it would be pretty easy to adapt her song 1, 2, 3, 4 for Sesame Street, because you could just keep counting and just keep singing more numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
They stuck to the 1, 2, 3, 4. The whole concept was I like counting up to 4. So there's like 4 penguins, 4 monsters. It's on YouTube.
Great. And I think we got enough time to talk about Weekend Update. I got a few small notes on that. One joke I like from Seth about the debate. Apparently Joe Biden said,
during the Democratic debate Tuesday night, Senator Joe Biden criticized Republican candidate Rudy Giuliani, saying there's only 3 things he mentions in a sentence: a noun, a verb, and 9/11. Giuliani later responded saying, Joe Biden sucks 9/11.
A joke I like from Amy is someone lost a promotion at FEMA, which begs the question, what does it take to get fired from FEMA? A female tennis star denied using cocaine.
Though after she left, officials did notice the baseline was missing.
Fred Armisen played studio head Roger A. Travanti, talking about, how the upcoming writer strike will affect him, and this worked better than it had any right to. I think Fred played up the clueless, self-righteous arrogance of his role expertly and in that way that only he could pull off, and it was a pretty good commentary on just the excesses of late 2000s wealth, or just 2000s wealth in general, that led to that economic crash. And then Keenan shows up as Nanny Barbara Birmingham to deliver a commentary on this year's inappropriate Halloween costumes for young girls, which was okay, but this is like sadly indistinguishable from Keenan's other drag characters from his. This isn't the first time he's done this character, I'm sure, but it's the first time we're talking about it. I liked his line about how the only costumes she had growing up were milkman and slave, and his lunging at Seth from across the desk, which somehow messed up his tie and unbuttoned his shirt so badly that he had to adjust himself and ad-lib and comment on it. Decent update, befitting of an episode hosted by a real news anchor.
The name Roger A. Chavanti reminds me of the actor Daniel J. Chavanti, as most would know from Hill Street Blues. Because say that the average writer makes $200,000. It's like,
I don't have $200,000. I wish I had $200,000, but I don't. I only have $20 million.
Singapore Airlines, their first used a Airbus 1380, that they have 10 private suites featuring doubles beds, that they're asking the public to refuse from having sex, and they said no. Personally, I love the business at the end with Seth's tie, so it's always nice when you can note those moments, just like that in the previous episode with the update desk coming apart. So it's nice when they can take those moments that happen and build it into the actual show.
That's that episode and this episode. Overall, I'll just say I remember liking this at the time. Wasn't quite as strong as I remembered, a little bit more uneven, but, as with most episodes from this time or any time, that's mostly due to just some, especially in this case, baffling sketch choices, wide range of political humors that some of it's a bit milquetoast, some of it's a bit strange and confounding. And if you want to read more about that last part, just read my blog. And it just seems like a weird episode because the parts that aren't about the host are from just before a time when politics and culture would shift drastically. Brian was decent, a little bit more stiff than I remembered, performed the best that someone could perform when they're not a comedian by trade and your background's in broadcast journalism. He didn't quite play himself all night. No one was expecting him to show a wide range or a limited range, but he was the biggest reason this episode was remembered.
A very enjoyable episode. He really impressed me, even though he didn't quite get the full SNL experience, because he was still a working newsman at the time, and he had hosted the debate that had been held that week prior to the episode airing. So he didn't quite get the whole late night writing experience, but he was very enthusiastic of what he wanted to do, and I can understand his bit of nervousness, but I think he did just fine. But that does it for this episode. So next episode, we're back on to documentary now. In one of the best episodes of the series for me, they're doing The Eye Doesn't Lie, based on the documentary The Thin Blue Line. You'll hear us again in a couple weeks. For now, I am Denise Behrens and will continue to be.
And I will still be Casey Killingsworth until I am informed otherwise.
And our entire purpose for doing this is because we heart Hater.
We heart Hater. And we live. Class dismissed.
Thank you for listening to We Heart Hater. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. We Heart Hater is a presentation of Wacky Notion Productions. Created by Deeds Behrens. Hosted by Deeds Behrens and Casey Killingsworth. Recording and editing by Deeds Behrens. Intro and outro music by Music Unlimited, used under Creative Commons license courtesy of Pixabay.com.